ready to branch out, to take a leap of faith, to love yourself and others fully? Then let go of whatever no longer serves you to take action now on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. With Erica's E3 approach, equipping, empowering, and enlightening yourself so you can be yourself for yourself. Get ready and get rooted to live a life without regrets, without what ifs, without should haves, and especially without empty feelings from a life unexplored. This hit show helps you build powerful and intentional roots to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Get fearlessly ready and powerfully rooted in your yes with your host, Erica Gifford Mills, and be fearless about your more and stand in your yes. Now on Get Rooted Radio.
Welcome, everyone. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. A big shout out to my producer today, Emily. Emily, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It is May Day, and May Day in our family was always a big thing. My mother was huge into community service, community involvement. We would make little May Day baskets out of cardboard or the sample wallpaper, stuff things in them and run to people's houses, ring their doorbell and run just to get out there, get involved and interact. And when I scheduled this with my guest today, I wasn't even thinking about the date. And so it's kind of a little tribute to her because she has passed, but it's a tribute to her on this day, May Day, that we are talking about creating positive outcomes that require community interaction and the ability to network through various means. And today we're going to learn about the importance of face-to-face interaction and what we can do when we partner with others for social good to increase global trade and tourism. So I want to tell you a little bit about my guest. I had the honor of meeting her just about 2 months ago now in Paris, France. Her name is Kristen Thomasino. She is a global humanitarian, creator and host of the Social Good magazine series. So if you haven't checked it out yet, check it out. And that's including a publication and a show. She's a 20-time author, a data scientist, and a 2-time CEO, including Thomasino Media, and Chief Buddy Officer and CEO of Buddytown Consulting, which is a global consulting service company headquartered in Los Angeles, California. Kristen is an amazing person. I could say so much, and I cannot do her background justice. She has been really successful helping build one of the largest fintech networks in the country during her time with Avid Exchange, playing a number of roles during her 13-year plus career, including being one of the top revenue producers and later leading teams of top revenue producers before retiring for her special projects in 2019, unfortunately due to an unexpected accident on a 15 feet of stairs, suffering from impacts of severe chronic illness with fibromyalgia. I could go on and on. She's got a wonderful season 2 coming up of her show, which is about to release another motivational podcast series available on Podbean called Woo with Kristen Thomasino. So again, it's my honor. Kristen, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Erica. It was so wonderful to meet you in Paris and to hear you speak on stage. You're so motivational. And, to meet all the other fantastic, women that we met there as well, just an honor. And, but wow, just, what a wonderful day, that story earlier about May Day and what you did as a tradition. It just, it's making me smile over here. It's making me think about these old ways, right, of how we interact and communicate with people so that it's meaningful. And,
yes.
I really love that. So thank you so much for having me on your show. This is a wonderful outcome of like networking and international networking even. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And I just want to jump in because we have so much to talk about and I feel like we're not going to have enough time in this whole episode. So we talked about social good in the introduction, but what is social good?
Sure. So Investopedia.com probably has like the best like definition of it out there, and I love that organization because of the education that they also put out in their material. But basically, it's the types of actions that lead to the largest outcomes for the best, hugest amounts of people, right? So when you think about that, what are those things that we could do that impact like having clean air, right? Clean water. What about education as far as like, understanding personal finance and like business? How can we, maybe help other entrepreneurs help, get a leg up so they can, go and create more jobs, right? These are the types of concepts that are inside social good, and that's why I get super excited about it because it's all about how we learn and the things that we can do to make our communities as a whole better, and not just necessarily one group, which I think is really, really important. It really is about like all of humanity. And when I think about that, that's pretty exciting prospect to me in this, current time.
So I think we've all heard of social good and heard of everything, but how did you really learn about it and want to move forward?
Sure. So in my early career, I studied lots of industries, and tried to think about what technology and technology partners we could work with when I was at Avid Exchange. And so I was on tour, and one of the things that I did was study non-for-profits. And I went to this great conference called, Blackbaud, for an accounting system that helps, non-for-profits, get their missions. And it was just super cool. I went to that one. I went to another one, with other non-for-profits. But at these, they had shows. And what was so cool is one of them had Ashley Judd, and she was there speaking about the good work that she does in the communities to help lots of different groups. And hearing her, come from her personal journey of what she and her family had been through at that time, and then hearing about how she had transformed her pain and other things into these positive outlets just was really inspirational. She seemed like somebody that was somebody that we could really model life after, and I really appreciate hearing someone like that during those times because it was definitely hit the mark for me. So,
Yeah. And it's a way of showing that celebrities, right, and people who are can truly be social influencers in a positive light, and they can move forward. And I love that so much because I think we don't always have enough of that. So I think that's one thing that's what you're doing is so important, is to get that message out there, because not everybody can experience that really celebrity status, top of the line, inspirational speakers. So I love this. And you've mentioned something about, this being a movement, right? Why are you calling it a movement?
I think that, why not? Like everything else has had like movements, and this seems pretty good. When you think about it, it's all about how we, take care of the earth, right? Which involves everybody. And it also, is about how we educate ourselves and, get well. And I think that these are the types of concepts, after all the different current events that we've gone through and the challenges of the past few years in particular, everybody's been traumatized. And I think it's time for us to have some positive campaigns where we focus on good examples, people doing good things. We celebrate it more in the media. I feel like, when I turn on the news sometimes, and I watch lots of things, but sometimes I turn it on and it could be like, whoa, what happened here, and I'm looking for ways to inspire people, kind of like how Ashley Judd inspired me and the others that were at that conference.
Yeah.
So,
and I think you made a good point, is that I always think of it as a review, or when you're walking down the street, you always hear the negative. It's so easy to do the negative. You had a bad experience. Well, I'm going to write a review on that. But what about getting that good out there? And I think it's so easy for us to focus on the negative that it's hard, right? But if we can more focus on the positive, that's going to be magnified. So I love that you want to make a movement out of this, and it really should be a movement. It's not just an occurrence, right? It's a way of life. And I really love that you're looking at it that way.
I think when you look at businesses and organizations, the most successful people and organizations are the ones that are able to adapt, right? And look at, what's happened but also keep, a positive outlook and be thinking about what are the solutions that we can do versus what everything is, going wrong. And it is a head game, Erica, mental health, right? To be able to think that way. And I think it takes a community involvement of us saying that this is how we want to live, right? And think
Absolutely.
differently.
Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about why social good can change the game for the world. But before we go, Kristen, tell listeners how they can reach you, hear about all your documentary, your magazine, your podcast. How can they reach and get more information?
Sure. You can go out to socialgoodmagazine.com, and on socialgoodmagazine.com, you'll be able to watch it, listen to it, even purchase and learn more about the participants that are in the magazine. I've got fantastic people like Dr. Lance McCarthy, Marie Lamel, Rose Garcia from the Real L Word series, lots of other amazing people like Raffles Van Excel. So that website really is a great place for you to go. And it is out there on 20 other networks also. So if you happen to be listening on like Spotify or iHeartRadio or Apple or Google, some of those are out there as well.
Wonderful. You are listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. That's getrootedradio.com to listen to the replay, sign up for the latest news, events, specials, and words of encouragement. Go to getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Kristen Thomasino. Kristen, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Tons of fun. So thank you, Erica.
Yes, my pleasure. So last segment, we talked about what is social good, which is something that benefits the largest number of people in the largest possible way. And I think that's really important because this segment, we want to talk about why social good can change the game. It's a game changer for the world. So why is that? And let's get into like who can participate, right? It's a game, right? It's a game in a good way.
Yeah, so social good is super important for a lot of reasons. Again, we kind of go back to the core principles of what we're trying to establish and get done, right? Which is positive outcomes for the most amount of people in humanity, right? So, okay, so one, that's pretty exciting because when you think about today's society, you hear a lot of people talking about we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this, right? Well, I get that lots of people need certain special things. However, in humanity, we all need certain basic things, all of us. And without some of those basic things, it makes life very difficult to, I don't know, grow and move along as faster along your path of what you want. And so when you think about that particular impact, right, of goal achievement and how do we get things done rapidly, community is important, and shared education as well as opportunities to network with different groups of people that have different skill sets. And even though I might not be the same skill set as say an engineer, right? I have other skill sets, in public speaking and in data science and other things, right? So there's lots of ways that we can get along and use different skills within our community to do this. And so I've got a few different projects as examples to talk about to kind of illustrate that. Does that sound okay?
That is awesome. Yes.
Cool. So, the first one that's really like kind of near and dear to my heart really relates to, when you think about shelter, right? So for shelter, everybody needs to have shelter. Sometimes bad weather happens. It isn't always 70 degrees out here in LA where I am, right? Lately, we've been getting unbelievable rain, Erica. It's fantastic actually for the drought that we've been experiencing because, there's going to be better outcomes later, but people are out there and there's a lot of unhoused population. Actually, the largest in the entire country is here in LA. And so when you think about that, there's this opportunity to say, well, what could we do differently, right, to create opportunities for people to get into housing at different price points? And how can we get private businesses plus, government and other folks to work together, right, to create these types of projects so that we can get people in? And so, one of the first groups is Soldiers of America. I mentioned Dr. Lance McCarthy. He's in the Social Good Magazine, Volume 2, and in my show. And, he's one of the contacts that I met. And he happens to work also as an economic advisor to the George Floyd Foundation. And he said, hey, Kristen, I really liked, your magazine and being in that. Would you help, be a part of Soldiers of America and, cover what they're doing as well? And so I put that in my magazine because it's such a great story about here's one way to think differently about solving the problem. Their solution happens to do with container homes, right? And it's called Untent, City Project. Well, that's one form of housing that we could rapidly use all these containers that are all over LA here, right? That have been in a backup, quickly get them into place. Now, there's other types of housing projects, for example, right, going on as well. I go and volunteer at the VA hospital, right? And I'll go sometimes there once a month when I'm able to participate. And I'll study and learn about, what other non-for-profits and groups are doing for profits as well to help this community of veterans, right? And there's different things that are happening there at that particular location, right? But my thought process was if I donate some of my time, if I network, if I tell people stories, right? Maybe I can shed some light on their missions and help, spread the word, right? So that's really what I've been doing. There's great organizations like Oath to Country Foundation. These folks not only volunteer at the VA hospital and donate, stuff to veterans, but they also actually go to soldiers' homes and they clean them up in a day. I participated in one of them and covered it in the magazine. It was just crazy. There was I don't know, all of a sudden a swarm of 30 to 40 people at one time, just came upon this house of this veteran that had been planned. All these trucks pulled up. There was businesses that sponsored and donated, resources to help, rehab this gentleman's home, this soldier's home. And just like that, people came in and they made it happen within a day. And that's what I think is pretty darn impactful about that story, because here's some no nonsense, here's the mission, here's what we can do, how can we connect with suppliers in our community, how can we get non-for-profits, multiple, to work together even on the project. And they did it, and so that's an example. There's other soldiers and veterans, and I know you're a veteran's daughter, right? If that's what
I'm a veteran's daughter, and my son is in the military, so that's very, very near and dear to my heart. Yes.
So thank you, ma'am, for your son's service and your family's service and yours as well, because we know how much that is on a family. And so thank you. And, there's other veterans that I've met in the community that are trying to help other veterans, right, that come back from pretty intense situations, right, that need assistance at times to get back into community, right? And so I have a friend who she's out of Ohio who I do advocacy work with, and she's with Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia, and she's put together this group of people, of both veterans as well as people who are related to veterans like I am. My father is a veteran and my grandfather. So she's got a number of advocacy initiatives to share information about how veterans can get access to resources and know the process, right? She's not going to be there every time to say, hey, can I greet you? Because she's actually disabled herself. But what she's done is she's created a rinse and repeat platform for people to come there, soldier to soldier. They know that they can trust her and the others. And here's a process path for you to take so you can help and empower yourself. How cool is that?
It's amazing. And I think it's what you mentioned is really important, because sometimes people think you need money to do this, or and sometimes it's just the opposite. Yes, money does make the world go round, right? And it does help, but your time, your word of mouth, you're getting out there and telling people what the needs are, because what maybe one person has, another person has too much or needs is another person has too much of. And there's so much that you can collaborate on it goes to your earlier point of everybody can get involved. It's not just for the rich. It's not just for the famous, right? It's for people who want to have a voice, who can get out there and get the message out, who can give of their time and their compassion to go out and really make a difference.
What I found was just amazing was even at this VA hospital, there were veterans who were coming back to help. They were all veterans, and even some of them, had their own injuries and disabilities, but they were out there as well helping with their family, and rallying resources from their community to help others, which was just super inspirational to see people's hearts like that. And I think these are the types of stories that teens and elderly and children and our adults need to start hearing in the news, in the media, on lots of channels, not just one channel. We've got to create and use many channels now, especially after kind of the events that have happened, right? It's important to listen to diverse voices, right, from lots of different backgrounds, and think about logical solutions, though, right? Not just the complaining, not getting caught up in the anxiety, the depression, right, or the stress, the freeze, that happens, right?
And you mentioned, youth, teens, adults, elderly. We need everybody at all ages, socioeconomic classes, to get involved. But why is that? Why do we need to get that diverse group out there?
Mm-hmm. Well, what I think is interesting about it is just that when you think about humanity, right? We're all part of humanity. I don't really prescribe by the right or the left, any of those types of concepts. I try to think about solutions that make sense for everybody. And when I listen to lots of diverse groups, I hear lots of feedback and I hear lots of success stories. So I'm like, why can't we just be logical and, share the best solutions? And, what I love is this great veteran, Crystal Kent. She's a great example. She has a limited amount of energy and time, right? She still is, healing and managing what she deals with all the time, with her own conditions. And, here she's created a platform that's rinse and repeat for soldiers to get help. But then, her next big move, she had a heart attack this year, right? Unbelievable. And she's like, I still want to do advocacy, but I got to do it nimbly, right? Because she's in a recovery path, but her heart's so big. And so she's got this great initiative to do proclamations for fibromyalgia awareness because, within the different cities, as well as the different state governments, there's governors and mayors that can help us. And this is a tangible way that they can use their, office to spread awareness about a condition that really affects everybody. It can. And that's what's kind of fascinating about it. That's why I have decided to raise the flag and do these types of campaigns, because of the research that I saw with how many different demographics of people that are affected by having issues with your nervous system, which is what happened to me, right? Ultimately. So, but this is just one of those examples, Erica, of ways that we can change the game for the whole world. Lots of people can get involved. Everyone can. And we can also measure our progress, pretty easily. There's lots of ways that we can do that with job growth and reduction of suffering in lots of ways. So more to come.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect way to end this segment, is about knowing that social good can change the world because we all can participate, right? We all can get involved. We all can do various parts. You don't have to be a subject matter expert on one thing to let your voice be heard. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about creating a platform for peace, love, health, and prosperity. Before we go, Kristen, tell listeners how they can reach you.
Sure. So you can go out to LinkedIn as well as another option. If you want to connect with me, I have a huge professional network out there. It's one of the ways that I love to, hand opportunities to people or connect people together. So you can find me at Kristen Thomasino, or you could follow my media company, even Thomasino Media LLC, and find me that way. You can also, again, go out to my website, www.socialgoodmagazine.com, and you'll be able to watch the show, see the publications, and any other kind of information about the guests as well that I interview, which are pretty amazing examples of social good.
Wonderful. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Don't forget to visit getrootedradio.com to listen to a replay of this episode featuring other episodes, or sign up for the helpful tips and learn about upcoming events. That's getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Kristen Thomasino. Kristen, thank you again for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we're talking social good, how everybody can get involved, how everybody should get involved. And now we really want to get into that, creating a platform for peace, love, health, and prosperity. So tell me, because you have an awesome platform for just this, what does your platform look like? And really, how did you get it to where it is today?
Sure. So I created lots of different pieces purposefully. I knew that I needed to speak to different demographics. And the reason why I created it, again, I went through like a serious accident, an injury. And when you go through years and years of suffering where your body is out of alignment, you hurt all the time, you're on prescription medication, heavy prescription medication for years, and you're just like, when's it gonna end? Like, is it ever gonna get better? Well, for me, my nightmare ended, and I've been able to manage and figure out my condition, and I can maintain it doing certain things. I still can be affected just like anyone else if I have certain things change in my inputs. And so I really thought about, hey, I spent my career as like a data scientist looking at lots of information of organizations. Maybe I should look at more data about myself and be aware and have self-awareness, but also invest in self-love. And, creating my platform, really begin to think about, well, if I'm going to share like with different groups of people what happened to me, which is pretty complex, some of them need to know the details, some of them don't, you know what I mean? Like kids, for example, like I have a lot of great lessons, but I have a kids series, right? So I designed, 8 children's books called the Life of Gumbo series. And it's all about our adventures, and how we went, across the country from the time I got hurt, little variation in the story for children, right? To coming across to California and having all kinds of adventures. So that's, one that's, available on Amazon as an example to, talk to children, both in digital and in print, right? I went further, and I decided to document, what was happening to me and publish some of my entries from my personal journaling that I did for a while in a community on Facebook, right? And when I did this on a page on there that I had, I pulled out some of the really tough writings. And my doctors knew I was doing this because we were like, holy crap, like what happens if bad things happen to me, right? And I decided that I wanted to document what was happening to me because there were so many unknowns about my condition, fibromyalgia, that I thought, even if I die, I would like the science community to understand this because I have experienced something that is horrific, and millions of other people, after I started doing research, I found out suffer like this too, all over the world. And then I found out too that there's actually like tens of millions of other types of people that are suffering from lots of other conditions, even within the autoimmune disease classes. I tested positive for autoimmune disease markers, but then I was able to get them negative. I took action pretty rapidly, lots of different things with my doctors. But there's lots of people that are experiencing those conditions, and they had symptoms, that are similar to what I experienced, in fibromyalgia. So these are some of the learnings that I took, right, and said, okay, how could I, build my program for me? And I documented that so I could share that with the medical community as well as with the patient community in a book. And that's called Discipline, Rigor, and Accountability. And when you look at Discipline, Rigor, and Accountability on Amazon, this is that book that really goes into, what happened to me. It's not for anybody under 18, and I really recommend, people go and make your own health team. I'm not a doctor. I always make these, declarations. I'm a patient that went through lots of different health teams that helped me. I listened to them. I did what they told me to do. I didn't want to all the time because it hurt more, but I did it. And so that's my message to people. Like, don't come to me wanting me to be your doctor. That's not it. My dad is a doctor. Please. My brother is a doctor. You know what I mean? My doctors helped me, my neurologist, my rheumatologist, my physical therapist. So you learn about that, right? I have podcasts that I talk about that as well that are available for people to listen to that I've done other shows with people with. So these are tools and implements for the patient community, right? As well as the healthcare community to back them up and to say, hey, you guys are right. People should be doing preventative healthcare, you know? So those are just some of them. Any questions so far? Thoughts?
Well, and I think I can see people saying, well, what does that all have to do with social good? It's because you have to communicate in multiple different ways, right? You have to get your message out there in a loving manner and in not just a clinical manner. And I think that's what, you say that, you're not a doctor and, and I totally get why you're saying all that, but it's also important to see it from the person's point of view, from the patient, right? From the person going through whatever the issue is, whether that is fibromyalgia, whether it's cancer, whether it's, veterans, whatever that is, when you see and you get the information out to people to say, you're not alone. And you can hit more people with the different platforms, whether that's digital, print, video, all that. That's how we get messages out. And that's why creating the different platforms is so important. But how can others get involved? So if, wanting to know more, how do they do that?
So not only did I create these books that are available on Amazon, right, that'll show kind of these different swaths of my medical stuff, I also decided to create some publications. And these publications came about because I created think tanks. And so if you want to get involved in like think tanks with me, I have a number of them out there on buddytown.com, my business. You can join.
Not to interrupt. Sorry. Yeah, not to interrupt, but you guys, listeners, you've got to check it out because I got lost. If you get lost in social media scrolling, I got lost in Buddytown. I was like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. So I had to say it before we ran out of time in the segment. You have to check it out. So go there.
Definitely check it out because there's lots of different networks that I've created. And these are the different ways that people can communicate, but share ideas. And I vet these different ideas also into deciding what I want to put in my publications and on my show, right? And so this is the Social Good Magazine, Volume 2. And so when you look at this one, this has like a lot of different people in it. And I put lots of people in it purposely as well as in Volume 1 because they're meant to be examples, examples of people doing good in our communities. People like Dr. Lance McCarthy, right? He's worked with various presidents. He's been an economic advisor to a number of those folks. And then as well, Marie Lamel, who works on a number of transformative activist projects here as a publicist also. And then, Raffles Van Exel, I mean, he literally has a song, Why Oh Why, with like CeeLo Green and Fantasia Barrino and Kenny Lattimore and Emily Estefan that they put together for global peace. And they're out there doing it. So there's lots of ways that you can get involved. And part of it is, think tanks. It's learning about the non-for-profits and the other businesses that are in my publication, maybe even reaching out to them and saying, hey, I heard about you on the Social Good Magazine. I'm interested in your mission. A lot of the volunteer veterans groups, I have an entire page listed of all their missions. So if you want to join them, donate, volunteer in an event or goods or services, you can get access to all of them there. So those are just some of the examples of some of the missions that I've put out there so that people can really kind of look at it and say, wow, we've got some good news happening in our communities. And I do, to your point, I want to get lost in Buddytown because in Buddytown, there's all kinds of cool people doing like really amazing missions. Not only are there organizations, but there's also like, you'll learn about my publications, fantastic organizations like in Volume 1, the Institute of Real Estate Management. They do tons of things with property management for real estate best practices. And I went to Minneapolis to see what was going on there and to meet with various business owners, to learn about the properties, to learn about what had happened during the unrest. And it's just a great organization to see what they're doing to lift up communities. So just another example of what people are doing to bring positive things to our communities now.
Yeah, and it does. It takes a village, right? It takes a village to raise our children. It takes a village to come about change, and the social good movement, as you call it, is how we're going to get there. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about taking action and going for empowering global tourism. This is Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any of the information during the last segments, go to getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com to listen to the replay. Don't forget to subscribe, sign up for tips and special events, and pricing for upcoming coaching sessions at getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Kristen Thomasino. Thank you again for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Tell listeners how they can reach you and learn more about all the wonderful things you have to offer.
Sure. People can go out to socialgoodmagazine.com. That's really where I suggest people to go out and learn about the publications, check out the videos. You'll hear lots of amazing voices. And you'll also get to see some adventures. I went to Paris, and, so I covered certain folks that were at the conference that Erica and I both spoke at. And it was just a fantastic thing. Dr. Angelica Wagner, I really love what she's doing for the neuroscience community. And that really is near and dear to me, especially with what's happened with fibromyalgia. So I have a whole episode highlighted about her and her great work. And then I also have an episode, that is a summary of the entire show. And it's clips of all the great speakers that I was able to grab, as many as I could. And I put them in there because I was really just moved by so many of the messages. And, it's energetic to sit there and to, talk to people and say, what could we do? And then to listen to where they come from and the learnings and the lessons, just such a blessing. So it's been fun to put that together and network again, with all these fantastic minds. And out of it, I met you, Erica. So
yeah, and I couldn't agree more, because you meet so many wonderful people, and you see how, even though you're just one little part of this great big world, yet we are so close. I mean, I for example, when I was talking to a few folks that I knew there, I heard somebody went, "Wait, Erica?" And I was like, "Who's calling my name?" It was a woman I've worked with for years. And I'm like, "Wait a second, what are you doing here?" But we had never met in person. It took us to going to Paris, France, to meet in person. And it's quite amazing to know that even though we might be one little piece in this great big world, we do really have a huge impact. And when you are able to listen to others and network and really use that power for good, for good and not evil, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And on that line, I know we've been talking about taking action and empowering ourselves and empowering other people through the social good movement. What does being a global humanitarian mean to you?
I think about like a lot of the different events that have happened. Lots of people have, put identification, joined different groups, had lots of different causes that they've been a part of. And for me personally, I look at, what are the causes that I can get involved in? What are the things that I could spend my energy to help all of humanity potentially, or maybe some groups that need help too, right? And that's, for me, when I think about it, again, I'm not really the right or the left. There's been a lot of that discussion in our country. And as a veteran's daughter and as somebody who is, a grandfather that was at D-Day, day 5 as a machine gunner, I just look at life differently. And I think that, all human life is valuable. And I think that if we started to, again, kind of focus back on what are the core of what, everybody needs, and what are the things that we could really do very well or improve upon in our society, and who could we learn from, or how can we learn from people that are finding success. I think that this is the opportunity of our time now. We went through a lot of pain and suffering. Who knows, like, why certain things happened or didn't happen? We've got to move forward. We've got to not repeat history, but we've got to, be able to take the learnings from the past and now create this new future in this present. And creating the present for a place that's open for business. Creating the present that people can go to big cities and it's affordable, travel, and being able to see, different entertainers, like LA has so many amazing entertainers. I cover them in my magazine, right? I went on tour. I had serious accident that happened to me. I was in rehabilitation for years. People don't kind of get it. Like, I know people are in isolation with what happened, but I was in isolation way before that because my body gave out, in the summer of 2019. So I couldn't really be around lots of people, and I didn't have, the ability to do all the things I wanted to do, instantly. So for me, when I went through all that, I wanted to travel. My God, I had been like trapped in my bed in this horrific suffering. I wanted to leave. I wanted to move. I wanted to have a new home, right? Like, who wants like memories of where you suffered horrifically? That wasn't a home for me anymore. That was a memory of a place where I went through torture. So for me, starting fresh, moving out to a new environment that was more healthy for me, I needed different things for my case, right? Other people are going to be like that. And so if I can, talk about, you know, um, things that influence positive economic growth, if I can share education, if I can talk about smart people who've done great things that continue to help, teams that have built technology that helps our communities, rapidly make better decisions in lots of different spaces, why not? And, I know lots of other people that are like me too. And we're just trying to get louder right now, Erica, and
Yeah.
we're going to get louder.
And I think you mentioned something, how you can take that action and really empowering that. And you mentioned it as, you wanted to be free, you wanted to experience life again and be able to travel. How does having that global, and why is it important to have that global perspective in order to grow, right? For economic growth, for job growth, for now and in the future?
Sure. I've been working on a lot of special campaigns with chambers of commerce, with some partners that focus on visitors bureaus as well. And we all talk about, what's it going to take? What's happening in the communities? Are people meeting as much? Where are they spending their money? Are we getting deals done? And I really like those conversations because I think it's what we need right now. We don't need to listen to the doom and gloom. We need to start thinking about what we can do to grow and start taking actions and not be, paralyzed, right, by stress and be frozen, right, and not take actions fast enough. So I think that that's super important. I think that, getting new money. Our communities need new money. You can't keep circulating the same stuff and not having an element of global tourism, right? You can't. We've missed that here in California and in other places, and now, we're starting to see the impacts on that on tax dollars. Well, that's what happens then with services and other things sometimes then get impacted. And if we want to continue to build good societies, then we've got to have, safe borders, right? Safe and secure, right? Ways for people to come over and be able to travel effectively. And so that's really like what I think about. And, the World Women Forum is an example of that. And what folks like ICON, Star Conferences did at that one. And I hope that more people will continue to have lots of other ones like this.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know we're running out of time here, and I think you said it really nicely, is that when we reach out, we help others, when we empower one another, when we lift each other up, we all benefit from that. And I think if that's the only message anybody takes from this is an important one, is go out there, do good, help others, be kind, and support one another.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
thank you, Kristen, for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Erica. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Yes, and I want to thank you all for tuning in to Get Rooted Radio. If you missed any part of today's show, go ahead and listen to it again on getrootedradio.com. Download the podcast, and don't forget to tune in the first and third Monday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, and 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Have an amazing day, and I'm looking forward to the next time on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Visit getrootedradio.com if you've missed any part of this hit show, and tune in on transformationtalkradio.com to live fearlessly in your more and powerfully rooted in your unlimited yes. For more information and to work with Erica directly, visit getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com, and get ready to live it up, love it up, and let it go.